Hey there, kings and queens. Welcome back to For the Kingdom. We are in the forgiveness series and we're closing down on the last few episodes of this series. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, sending in your feedback, and giving me some testimonies of things that you guys have overcome and things that have been helpful for you all to hear throughout this series. I'm so grateful for every one of you, each and every single one of you. If you guys hear some shouting and hooting in the background, that is my mom and my family turning up, having a whole praise session in the basement. So don't mind it. We're going to keep this video going. So we've talked about forgiving others. We've talked about forgiving ourselves. We've talked a lot about forgiveness in general throughout this series. Today, we're talking about forgiving God. Now, before you guys start throwing the holy water at the screen and rebuking me, hear me out. When we talk about forgiveness, it requires a level of vulnerability. A level of vulnerability to say, one, that we've been hurt, that we've been disappointed, that we were let down in some way, or that things didn't work out the way that we expected. And that's exactly what we're doing with God. We're admitting and talking to him about, yeah, I felt let down in this area. I felt disappointed in this area. God, why did you take my mom? God, why did you allow me to go through this abuse or trauma? God, where were you when I was going through that divorce or that abortion or that miscarriage? God was still there. And sometimes it can be hard to hear that and believe it. It can be so hard to believe that even in our darkest moments, he was still there with us. It can be hard to believe that when we felt our most alone and our most abandoned, that he was really still there with us. And so there may be some resentment because you may be thinking, hey, well, if he was with me, if he was there with me, why did he allow me to go through that? And this is when I tell you I cannot answer that question. I've had that question many times in my life, and sometimes I still get that question. But one thing that I've been challenging myself to do, and that I'm challenging you to do, is to let go of the why and to embrace the healing that God has in replace of it. We cannot understand the mind of God, but we do know his word, and we know that because of sin, there are some things that unfortunately happen, yet even with the darkest things that have happened to us, God can still take that and transform it into something beautiful, something that magnifies not just you, but his kingdom and gives him glory. I know it can be hard to hear that. I know it can be hard to wrestle with that in your soul. I'm wrestling with it too. I'm not going to tell you guys anything that I'm not struggling with too. But if I may invite you to fight with me, to wrestle with our internal hurt, our internal emotions together, so that we can still see God's greatness, God's love, God's provision and protection, even when we may not have seen it at first. So, as you guys are kind of taking in some of the things that I'm saying, I encourage you and want to challenge you, just as I'm challenging myself, to think about where in your life, what areas of your life are you harboring unforgiveness towards moments when you felt like God let you down, or you felt like God wasn't there or disappointed you. Bring him your questions. He can handle it. I bring him my questions. He wants us to come to him with questions. He recognizes himself as our Father. And what father does not want their child to come to them with questions? I know this is against the things and the traditions that we've learned about God, but when we really study his word in 1 Peter 5:7-9, he literally says, cast your cares on him because he cares about us. Cast your concerns on him. Submit it unto him. And Malachi 3, he says, test him in these things. That he won't test, that he will give you the glory. He will magnify you. Despite the pain, despite the hurt, that he will still pour out a blessing that you won't have room enough to take in, to accept. He can still do these things with all of those things that you think are disqualifying you or things that you're ashamed of. There are so many things I'm like, how could you still bless me when I went through this? Or how would you still love me when I have this on my background? God will take it. He will take it and He will give you beauty for the ashes. And He will give you comfort for the hurt. Sometimes we fight our whole lives, and this is just something I've been going through, fighting my whole life, looking for approval and acceptance from everyone, from so many people, my whole life. And God is like, I'm here. I'm right here with open arms. I know you've been hurt. I know you've been let down. I know you felt alone, but I'm here with open arms and I want to give you that approval. I've already approved you. Actually, I want you to realize that I approved you so that you can step into your glory and step into your calling and your purpose of who you are called to be. So right now, I encourage you, I challenge you, I double dog dare you to submit those questions, to surrender those concerns, to surrender those cares and those fears to God and let Him restore you. Let Him give you healing in place of it. You may not get the specific why that something happened, but I guarantee you off of my faith and off of my experiences that He'll give you something so much more valuable. We may not understand all the whys in our life, and sometimes it's best that we don't. Ever think about that? Sometimes there are things that we just don't need to know. And with that, I encourage you guys to surrender to God, meditate on the Word and these things that I've said, and to live towards forgiveness, healing, and self-love. God loves you. I love you guys, and I'm encouraging you guys. I'm rooting for you, kings and queens, and continue to work towards this journey of forgiveness.